Righto, money miners, I'm a bit under the weather. I've got the pseudo into me, but it won't stop me turning up for the money miners, mate. Just like, mate, Axis, mate, if they got malaria, we'll still answer the phone. Bloody Shawnee, everyone, mate, they've had Ross River, they've had like influenza A. They're still on the phone talking to people about drill hole survey instrumentation. You don't become the trusted advisor by having a sickie, ever. Just
the people they are.
I'm trying to emulate what Axis Mining Technology does in the show. Just turn up. Tell you what, old bloody Greatland Gold has finally turned up for the big Telfer Havieron sale, possibly, but it's looking as close as it's ever been.
Big time, mate. Big deal. Huge deal. Big news. Yeah.
Huge and big. Going to be, obviously, this is the early part of the story. Going to be probably more news by the end of the week, I'd anticipate, about the specifics, but we will just infer from what is known. The Paladin vote. Bloody couldn't find anything on it this morning, and then bang, Paladin's announcement comes out.
Just over the line. So we're eating our words on that one. We'll touch on that as well.
Yeah.
Some interesting news out of G Mining. They're a TSX listed company. They've had a couple interesting bits of news come out over the last day. Trav, you're going to talk about Bowen Coking Coal.
Yeah. Yes. BCB. Troubled miner, mate. There's some 249D sort of stuff and trading halt today after being intraday down 22%. Doesn't look good. But speaking of like 249Ds, mate, Global Lithium too.
Absolutely. Going to talk about Global Lithium. That is an interesting story.
Very much so.
Why don't we start with the deal, guys? Greatland, I think, is the logical place to start this one.
Oh, mate, the bloody my new Greatland mates on Twitter, Stewie Hines, he'll be bloody loving this. First segment of the show, Stewie. All for you, brother.
I woke up with like Twitter. It's like 6 unread messages from Stewie Hines just in my inbox.
God bless him. What a legend. Fighting a good fight. So AFR Street Talk article got posted yesterday. Boys, take us into the details, please.
Yeah, so the story pops up. Greatland in $500 million raise for Newmont's Telfer, Twiggy tipping in. So we then see, obviously, with London opening while we're in the afternoon slot here, they start to trade for an hour or so before they manage to get themselves into a suspension. LSE works a little different to the ASX, but there was an hour or so of trading. Interesting to see about 250,000 Aussie dollar equivalent kind of changed hands, something in around that level, not an enormous amount, but, interesting to see that the stock tipped up marginally, I think 3% up by the time it went into a trading halt.
You normally expected, a deal leak about a cap raise with in the midst of live trading, the stock to just puke, like sort of remember Karoon, like when a similar sort of thing happened, but that didn't happen, which is pretty positive for what the potential deal could look like.
Yeah, so we'll give a couple ins and outs quickly of everything. It's no surprise. Greatland, as you said, Matty, long suspected to be the scooper upper of Telfer, and so for people that are a bit more unfamiliar with it, the Havieron and Telfer sit 50 odd kilometres from one another. Havieron 70% Newmont owned, previously Newcrest owned, 30% sits with Greatland, and Telfer is obviously 100% Newmont owned. So rumour is $500 million raise, as we said. The announcement that came out from Greatland was talking about cash, equity, deferred payments, which we'll I'm sure have a few guesses about in a moment.
So the $500 million raise doesn't mean they're paying $500 million. They're probably paying more than that if there's deferred involved, if there's scrip component going to Newmont, and also if they're debt funding any of the price as well.
Exactly. So Telfer has 600,000 ounces in measured and indicated. It's clearly near the end of its life. It did 400,000 ounces in production in FY22. That was the last undisrupted year. Before December of last year, they paused production because they had cracks and sinkholes sort of forming in the TSF. So that is a conditional part of the deal as put forward in the Greatland announcement. They want the remediation work. I'm sure that'll be sort of linked in with deferred payments, as we'll chat about in a moment, but that is not yet solved, that issue there.
Yeah, and I'd say, like, when you say, like, nearing the end of its life, I'd say for that district nearing the end of its life for what is proven at the moment. I would imagine that tenure, there's just fucking gold everywhere.
It was non-core for the bigger Newmont now. So obviously, if it goes into the hands of a smaller party and they can look a bit more thoroughly with a adjusted sort of cost structure in and around it, things can work. But of note, it is a very big plant there at Telfer, 22 million tonne over 2 trains. So we'll see what comes out in the studies that I'm sure we will see in the future once Greatland wraps their hands on it, assuming the deal gets done and dusted. But
I think that's like, it sounds like there's potential to cut the plan in half and run the one train.
Used to work there, mate.
Oh, God. Yeah, good old Telfer. There's not many people that haven't bloody... One guy that worked up there when I was there, I think he was in the mill, was born there. Like, because it was a town. Like, it was a proper out of bloody IGA and a TAB. God, you imagine friggin' TAB after work. Bloody up at Telfer. Nothing else to do but drink piss and bet on horses. Yeah, still had street signs up there on all the camp. Oh, it was friggin' huge.
Old mining town.
Shittest food ever.
So one of the other interesting parts that was revealed or sort of put forward in the Fin article was that the ASX listing will come in 2025. Chatting amongst us late yesterday, today, I don't think that's a massive surprise. Quite a big effort to get the deal done, to have that all wrapped up and then do an IPO at the same time. It also would give Greatland the opportunity to put their sort of wrap around the mine plan, the project, get out in front of investors in a roadshow as well to a market that's, I think, pretty obviously more receptive to gold stories, especially given it's a WA gold story. I think what we've been hearing for a long time is that the LSE just isn't the place to be if you're a company in its life stage that Greatland finds themselves, right?
Mate, London mining, like if you're a mining company and you're listed in London, like just
give yourself an uppercut.
Yeah, stop. Come to the ASX or NYSE has like the most phenomenal multiples of the lot. But yeah, mate.
Hey, we'll have you. We're welcoming in Australia. Go Australia.
The ASX is known to be friendly for companies it wants to,
So friendly.
If you want money mine to talk about, you go ASX.
Yeah, there's it, mate. What more do you want?
Interesting, obviously, in the headline, Twiggy tipping in. What did you guys kind of think of this? So it's pretty well known that Wyloo, Twiggy's mining investment arm, is, I think, roughly 8.5% shareholders of Greatland as we speak. And that is a company that has a market cap of £360 million. That's roughly 700 million Aussie. So this is a pretty, transformational, as they kind of like to say, raise if it gets up in the size that's been leaked by Street Talk. But they're talking about taking up 100, right? So that is potentially 20% of a raise, well and above what their equivalent would be. It's an interesting swing. I find it kind of interesting given the wording, the framing around renewables, hydrogen, all these things, the direction in which that side of Twiggy's portfolio has gone in recent times. I find it quite interesting. I mean, people have spoken about the copper aspect of this project, but I mean, the way I see it, it's a gold project.
Yeah,
right? It's marginal, the copper that comes out of this one.
Yeah, and I think it's the first thing they've done. Wyloo's done since, is it? Well, like first check they've cut since probably the Mincor assets going on care and maintenance. They've been pretty quiet since then. I can't think of anything off the top of my head like when they had the spree last year when they were pretty active.
They've probably been putting some money into Eagle's Nest and things like that, but nothing like deal.
Yeah,
and this big public one that comes to my mind.
And this is like, obviously it's not, they're in it already and they've got the
and it's got the FMG sort of feel around the board
and
everything.
I think it's when you're saying like the renewables and hydrogen, it's all very separate now, isn't it? That's more going in the whole Fortescue bloody green thing, whereas Wyloo, I think, is still probably looking to be a separate mining arm for stuff like this.
And before that is right, they are separate from Fortescue, but even within Wyloo, the nickel and everything, the premise was very much a future-facing commodity blend of.
Well, this investment predates you think of Wyloo as a nickel miner because of Kambalda, like basically Mincor, and they became a miner for a brief period of time there. But like they had two pretty active kind of gold like deals. One was Greatland, and the other was an attempted kind of raid of Regis as well. It's not like they were foreign. They just had like a pretty open mandate, which I think they were just kind of deal, just keen to do like nimble deals where they saw value in the mining sector for a while there. So I wouldn't read too much into it from a portfolio perspective. I think it kind of predates the sort of the full scope of what Wilo is today.
I think when you're talking about copper, it's Havieron by itself, probably not shitloads of copper, but we'll get into it later, potentially with Telfer and the district and the processing infrastructure to treat all the copper. It might end up taking a lot of copper. Could be the first piece of the puzzle. Yeah, we'll get into that.
And when you look at the board of Greatland, like 3 people there, sort of in some way, shape, or form affiliated to Twiggy or Fortescue, or it's like you've stacked the board. You're a major shareholder. You've even got a sort of debt facility in there. You're sort of wedded to see this to cornerstone the funding. I think at that point, like
yeah. He just got his divvy too. Just got his billion. God.
Comes in the account. It's just got to go out somewhere.
So they'll tip the cornerstoning this one, and they'll I reckon you'll see them follow their rights in the ASX IPO as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I mean, Matty, you've had a bit of a look at the broader space. It throws up some interesting questions about we spoke about Winu and Tipper. They're all in the area. Why don't you just give a bit of a lay of the Paterson sort of province there?
Yeah, and I think the summary of it is like it's so different to like a Murchison for gold. Or everything we're talking about here is pretty like massive tons, low grade and separated, which is not like yes, it's all close, but are they going to be trucking 10 millions of tons to a central processing facility? I'm just not sure how that will be calculated. Like whether it's I'd love to know the feasibility of something like that, because as we know, the biggest thing with all, and I'll go through them all, like imagine all like trying to permit all these, like that processing infrastructure on a permitted lease is valuable. That's where the value is, that infrastructure permitted, just get the bloody shit there. Whether trucking 100 odd kilometres for friggin' 0.5% copper or lower is feasible, not sure, but we'll go through everything in the region. Because Antipa's the first one that comes to mind. They're sort of, recently Newmont took their pro rata up in their raise. They've got, because their flagship one's that Minyari project, so it's like 1.8 million ounces at 1.6 grams. It's like a pit, then an underground 3 million tonne coming out of there. That looks to be, how far is that bloody?
About 50 kilometres north of Telfer.
Yeah.
And, sort of similar.
And you looked at it and you thought, well, Newmont's never going to, it's not, the scale's not there for a Newmont, but now Greatland's a natural consolidator. It could all kind of wrap in one day.
Yeah.
Do you think that?
Yeah. And look, that 50 Ks away, gold. Like another thing to probably consider is, it says it's got copper, cobalt and silver as well. So how all the met works, because it's like you've got Telfer's obviously a copper concentrate plus I think 40% of gold that come out of Telfer was in doré bars. The rest of the gold was contained within the copper concentrate. So it's how all the met sort of relates to each other, running it through the flotation, and like you probably, if it's gold only, but it looks like most of it does have copper. So I assume there's smart people like Mr. Nathan Stortis out there that would figure that all out. So that's but then they've got there's all the JVs they've got with like the Paterson farm in with IGO. They've got a JV with Rio for the Citadel, and then obviously the Wilkie farm in with Newmont. But then you've got like the one that got mentioned in the Street Talk article was Rio Tinto's Winu project.
They're trying to sell that, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they pretty much said looking to not necessarily selling the whole thing, possibly looking to partner or someone to buy a strategic stake in to develop it and retain a minority interest. Or they weren't saying they want to divest it; they were open to getting a partner. Well, so
Rio's not short of money, so it would be strange that they'd want a partner to develop it.
Yeah,
that to me seems like they just want to sell it.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's like, because it's definitely not a Rio sort of
scale.
What you'd say a Rio. I think it's about under a third of the grade of OU Tolgoi.
Yeah.
Like it's like, what is it? 608 million tonne resource, 0.4% copper, 0.3 grams per tonne gold. So it's like, it's fucking huge. Like they're saying it's like a 32-year pit, 30 million tonne total material movement per year. So look, 2-to-1 strip ratio, that'd be 10 million tonne of ore.
How deep is it?
What's that?
How deep is it?
I think it's still open at depth. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it's fucking bloody. She's pretty. Oh, I've got the picture here. Where is it? Yeah, it's bloody deep. Like it's big shitload of tons.
Yeah.
But it's like they put the big, massive environmental impact assessment in, I think, end of last year to the EPA. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that becomes in. I think it looks on the map. It's like about, I think they quoted 100 in the article, but it looks like about closer to 150 away from Telfer. So it's like, yeah, what like, would you truck that far or just? I don't know. Like, there's no other to build a friggin' plant like that and get it permitted up there. It's like it's just becoming harder and harder. So, yeah, I would
build a giant conveyor, mate. Just fucking.
Yeah, that'd be the go. Just go underground. Just fucking underground the whole thing. I wouldn't be like, because if you think of who's like, obviously Greatlands, you know, if they start securing this district, it's like, yeah, would they like look to, you know, keep growing and become a JV? Mate, I wouldn't rule out MMS for a 32 million tonne pit. Like, don't underestimate how big they are going to get.
They're keen
as
for
an
work.
Open pit mining contractor, mate. They're meteoric rise. Like, they're doing JVs with everyone. I reckon they're heading towards a JV with Rio. Like, mate, they're not scared of 30 million tonne.
No.
They'll move 40 just because of bloody, why not? They've got the Wealth of Nations pit with Corinthian going, the JV there, pumping out the bloody Myrie dirt, the ore early for Black Cat, mate. They got the second contract at Mount Munga with Fred 5, mate. Next stop, Rio Tinto for MMS.
Yep.
I think, but or it might be Greatland. I'm not sure. So
They take the risk. You still get the upside.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised to see it at all. But go MMS.
It's just another journey we're on.
I'm glad you mentioned him.
Just quickly on Winu, there was a question posed at the half-year results about a month ago about what's going on. So Mark Davies, the Chief Technical Officer, spoke a bit about Winu. So they're no longer drilling up there. They're working on the permitting process more broadly. They said that, working their way through traditional owner engagement and the broader permitting process. They said, obviously, they think that's pretty comfortable. They're getting close to making the appropriate agreements and, you know, advancing things on that front. So
very interesting. I can't imagine it'd be a quick process. And but
you imagine trying to build a plant up there to process that. It'd be bloody billions.
Tough. There's
fucking huge.
Couple of other quick points on the deal. One is I'd love to have been privy to the negotiations in this sale process, because like it was well advertised that you know this package of assets were for sale by Newmont, like fucking everywhere. So everyone knew it was for sale, and everyone knew that Newmont wanted like a clean exit. They wanted to sell both Telfer and Havieron. You know, they didn't want to be left with one of them.
Yep.
And the fact that the Greatland Gold, who own 30% of Havieron, you know, it was also documented that they basically had a right of last refusal over the other 70%. So even though Newmont wanted to sell both of them, if Newmont got, you know, a bid from anyone else for the whole package, someone else wanted both Telfer and Havieron together, the 70%. Well, then Greatland still retained the right to say, I'll match. You know, I'll match that offer for Havieron and just get 100% of Havieron, which would, you know, scare that bidder away, and then Newmont would be left with just Telfer, which was unpalatable to Newmont. So I just think that the negotiations in this sale process would have been really interesting, because like it was all the leverage to Greatland Gold was always really, really positive, because you kind of know from that dynamic alone that Newmont's going to want to sell this to Greatland, because they're the only feasible one that's kind of going to put their hand up to take it all, which is what Newmont really wants.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to if it does go through, like, because it's come out of the whole world of Newcrest and Newmont, like they're a big dog. Love to see a company go into an asset like this, a tenure like this, and just start ripping fucking drill holes into it. Like, just to see, like, apply like a bit of a Northern Star model to it, which is similar to what Northern Star did at with all the Barrick and obviously Jundee out of Newmont. Love to see that happen here and see what else is there, because, mate, there is that underground. There is just fucking gold, like unbelievable. There's reefs up the top. There's obviously the big cave they had. Like, it's just, it is, it's just huge, like historically. So yeah, where there is gold, there is usually more gold.
It's big mill to fill. So I wish them luck with the exploration. And one last fun fact for you guys: I'm pretty sure that this whole package that Greatland's going to be picking up, I'm pretty sure it includes the O'Callaghan's tungsten resource, which is actually Australia's largest tungsten resource. And if you look at Newcrest's reserve statement for 2023, you'll see in the footnote, they actually report this tungsten resource, which I'm pretty sure is pretty close to Telfer. And you can see in the footnote there that it says they even did an internal scoping study on the bloody thing. So, yeah, mate, there's a bloody a tungsten spin out on its way. Just you wait, tungsten.
I look forward to adding another stock to the W watch list.
Is tungsten the next antimony?
Could be. All right, let's stay on the theme of gold, but go to a different continent. G Mining. You guys heard of this one?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, so they are a sort of portfolio company of a former guest. La Mancha has had heavy involvement with G Mining in the past. They are a South American-focused operator that are listed on the TSX. So they're up to a $1.9 billion market cap in Canadian dollar terms, having a pretty decent day. Like yesterday, sort of a bit later our time, they were up 11%. They had two interesting announcements come out on the same day. So the first one is that they'd shared the PEA from Oko West in Guyana in the very north of South America. And then they'd also acquired the Centro Gold project from BHP. These are, of course, a project that had come into BHP via the Oz Minerals transaction. So let's start with the yeah, absolutely. Let's start with the PEA. I'll run through a couple of numbers and then we can kind of kick around some thoughts on it. But NPV using a 5% discount rate, we've sort of shared what we think about that in the past. But using the 5% discount rate, you get a US $1.4 billion NPV, an IRR of 21%. Now, a couple of the other assumptions involved are a $1,950 US gold price. That's their base case scenario. Just under a $1 billion US startup capital cost. About 350,000 ounces per annum at a all-in sustaining cost just below $1,000, around a 13-year mine life. This is an underground and open pit project, 6 million tonne per annum plant. I think they've been sort of fairly conservative on that base case gold price. I mean,
they ran a spot case as well. And,
yep, 2.5.
Numbers are pretty attractive at spot.
Yeah, the numbers look pretty good. So they've sort of modelled US $270 million free cash flow, obviously with all their assumptions involved, average annual over the life of the project. Spot, like you said, Trav, that sort of flushes out to be around US $400 million per annum free cash flow.
Looks like a huge production profile, if you can fund it. I mean, they've got a decent sized market cap now. Looks like they'll might get there on funding. I don't know if they have other. And if you got La Mancha there as a shareholder, I mean,
they've got another project that this isn't the sole project of.
They've got three now, mate, with the one they picked up from BHP.
Exactly. So things are all going full steam ahead there.
I got pretty compelling numbers, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking 350 off the bat.
I do like the I kind of like it when you have some. There's this huge trend of a lot of these like large mining companies or whatever to move out of the risky jurisdictions, and they try and like if I think the B2 Golds of the world, I just want to get out of Africa and then start buying all this stuff in Canada and whatever. But I almost admire the strategy of like leaning into jurisdictions where you think you can have a competitive advantage, where it's like it's not your typical tier one jurisdiction. I mean, these guys are going ham in Brazil and Guyana now, which is like such an interesting strategy. And I just think it will kind of reap rewards if you can really manage your costs better than people can in these other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Mate, the rise of Minas Gerais. Is that how you bloody...
That's not a bad pronunciation.
That'll bloody do.
Yeah,
Right.
so I think that sort of, speaking of Minas Gerais and Brazil more
Minas
broadly,
Gerais, yeah, that's the one.
that takes us to the other announcement, the acquisition. So Central Gold, 47 tenements in Brazil, Maddie, 1.7 million ounces in indicated and another sort of 600,000 in inferred. Now, all they've paid for this is a 1% NSR on the first million ounces and then going beyond a million ounces, 1.5%. That is,
That's easy.
no upfront
How
cost.
good's that?
That is
Just
pretty-
hand her over. We'll give you some later.
Exactly. So Oz had run a study through this one some time ago. What that spat out on a PFS was a 10-year mine life doing between 100 and 120,000 ounces per annum. Obviously, this was never going to be a BHP project. I would have thought they can get a bit of cash, but it seems like they're much more content just kind of getting it off their hands and, again, simplifying the portfolio as BHP like to do.
Whenever you're at a major and you're selling an asset, you've always got to slip in a royalty so you don't look stupid.
Yeah.
Just, like that's the
Especially when you're selling it for nothing.
Yeah.
I do think Oz ran a sale process or an extended sale process on their Brazilian assets and never kind of got anywhere. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the first time that these assets have been tried to be sold, but it's finally happened now.
Perhaps, yeah. I'm sure there's people out there that know much more about the Central Gold project than I do, but for no upfront cost, it doesn't seem like the worst decision to make. And I think that's a bit of a model that G Mining are following. Like you kind of say, Trav, they're going to places out of left field, and that's kind of how, over the long run you get decent returns just by doing something a bit different.
I think it's not an ASX company, but I think it's one we've got to keep an eye on because I get the sense that, you mentioned it's a La Mancha portfolio company. I get the sense that the ambition with this company is like an Endeavour Mark II in a lot of ways. And of course, La Mancha made truckloads of money with Endeavour, and the other one that made truckloads of money on was Evolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very good, boys. Right, the Fission-Paladin deal. Jesus Christ. Scraped over by Whisker. 67.26%. What's that? 0.66%.
Yep. Got to eat my words on this one. I didn't think it'd get up. I think one of the things that when we were chatting about it yesterday, perhaps, didn't mention loudly enough is, everyone's incentivized to get the deal over the line. There was sort of, I think, circa $14 million in fees up for grabs. Obviously, the companies, board had recommended the deal and everything. They've got the proxy solicitors and everything working on their side. So I, stand by with what we said about the them not being in a good position a couple of weeks prior. They knew that. They had the vote sort of coming in, and they've clearly managed to do enough. They would have been quite aware of this into the lead up, and I think rather than, seeing a no vote, the outcome would have been an extended timeline, perhaps a recut as we sort of brainstormed yesterday. But, having a deal go to the vote and not get up is not something that's really in anyone's kind of interest.
Yeah, I think I mentioned yesterday, I'm like, if they're doing the vote, they must think they've got a reasonable enough chance, and reasonable enough. Who cares how much it is? It's over. So it wouldn't have worked in Australia, needing 75%, but obviously works on the TSX. So
there's a Canadian vote through and through. It was the Fission shareholders voting on this one, but I would love to hear from the proxy advisors what went on in those past couple of weeks.
Because we still don't have. Has anyone got any colour on how that whole option thing worked? About what do you sort of got?
I didn't read it, but there's this big PDF on CEDAR, which includes the full interim court ruling. It's like a 6-page thing, and there's probably some mechanics in the information circular too, which we couldn't be bothered reading. Yeah,
but they've obviously that interim court order was what got them the points, just enough for those whatever those options were worth to. I'd love to know. Yeah,
it was a very decent voter turnout, which was interesting. You can sort of see we spoke about I think about 900 million shares and options out, and you can sort of sort of see that it looks like 3/4-ish of them got to vote, which,
Yep.
you know, you never see anywhere near 100%. Obviously, that's a kind of given, but it was on the higher end of voter turnout from what we could sort of deduce. Something interesting as well, which we haven't mentioned yet, was that it took them a while to announce it this morning.
Yeah, like there was nothing on Twitter, and then obviously Paladin announced it after market
40
open.
minutes after the open.
Yeah. So unless I'm still counting them or something, I'll bucket if I know, but nothing on the Fission side. So I assume the Fission side would have come out with the Paladin one, but I think we were talking about what would happen if it didn't get up yesterday, but now I'd say, well, you would think that Paladin are probably going to have their hands tied now, like with this, like you wouldn't see them getting active. So whether that puts, you know, who's like a Bannerman on the table for, in and around that Namibia region. There's a bit. I think there's a bit going on in Africa.
Yeah, I think so. And just to wrap on Fission-Paladin, the deal's not fully completed. There's a couple customary court rulings and stuff that'll come over
for that too.
Yeah, they're just
it's done.
You know, got to walk the walk. And
Sack the champagne already if you're a banker.
I'm sure they would have been this morning.
I'll be interested to see what, like, post this deal, what Paladin's going to do and how quickly they're going to try and get the PLS project happening. Like I know there's still waiting on there's approvals and everything. It'd be interested to see, right, you've got them over there. Now Paladin's in there. Obviously that is their bloody intention to get that project going. They've now got it right next door to Arrow. What the interactions are going to be with those two deposits, with approvals, permitting, timelines, who's going to get there first. It's shaping up to be very interesting.
I mean, the clock's ticking, right? You've diluted your share count to the effect of 24% of the larger entity now being owned by Fission. You want to see a reward for what you've done there. So we get to the work now.
Dynamic reminds me a bit like Emmanuel Dat. He wrote this Substack last night about, you know, what's the read-through on Pilbara Minerals acquiring Latin, right? Kind of sort of a similar dynamic. You know, Pilbara's acquired Latin, which gives them a lot of, you know, option value and leverage, but they don't have to, you know, they don't have to make any sort of move on Sigma at all. You know, they can wait that out until spot prices turn and then maybe kind of consolidate. But it just
someone else might get Sigma first.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
There's a lot of wounded people walking around in that industry. There is something else, Matty, though, that they need to do. Paladin. Now that they're up in the Athabasca Basin, you know.
Yeah, well, in addition to Namibia, like CRE Insurance need to get onto this straight away.
Yeah.
Like there is some the Athabasca Basin needs to be protected. That is the future of our global energy. Part of it, mate, unexpected events. Mate, CRE, I reckon they will broke the living shit out of a bloody good policy for over there. That is like, it's always your first ticket item. You get your hands on something, protect it straight away.
Matty, they're the absolute masters of kind of just bespoke underwriting. Every mine's bespoke. What are the weird risks you could come across in the Athabasca Basin?
If I knew, we wouldn't need CRE insurance. That's why you call them.
Leave that to the geniuses, Trav.
I am not going to disrespect them like that. Like, mate, you go to them, you get them to broker policy for you. It's like an insurance hug. It's like you're safe now. You're with us. You're fine. Paladin, CRE insurance. Protect the Athabasca Basin. Protect Namibia. Protect the future of global energy.
And have a good sleep at night.
Bloody, what a burden the CRE crew bloody carry. It's unbelievable. Speaking of another burden in the process, Bowen Coking Coal. No, Bowen Coking Coal.
Bowen Coking Coal.
Jeez. Yeah. Isn't coking coal supposed to be the thing these days?
It's had a bit of a hard run. That coals down a bit. Thermal's looking a bit better then. Anyway, they got coking coal in their name, but they do produce a bit of thermal as well. It's like 60-40. But anyway, trading halt, Matty. I just don't have a good feeling about it. You know, when you see a stock smash 22% down intraday.
Mind you, that is 2 ticks.
Yeah.
But Yeah,
doesn't look good.
I'm just nervous. I just get nervous. The stock's down. Yeah, so obviously they've gotten a speeding ticket from the ASX, so they're in halt as they respond to that. So don't know if any material information will kind of come out in the process, but I think things have been looking a bit dire for Bowen for quite a while now. Look at the last quarter, which was the June quarter. Operating cash flows went the wrong way to the tune of $18 million, which is not the way you want them to go. The debt that you need is what you've got to pay attention to, though, because they've got Taurus there as our senior debt facility to the tune of US $51 million. Notably, US $13 million of principal is to be repaid in the September quarter. Not sure what day in September, but I do note that we are in September. And they've also got a subordinated facility to that, which is about Aussie $50 million to New Hope. So in Aussie dollars at 30 June, they actually had about $167 million of drawn debt if you include $40 million worth of convertible notes too. Early August, so about a month ago, you could see kind of Regal rinsing their shares in the change of substantial kind of disclosures there, which is not a good sign. Share price has been like just one-way traffic on the Spark chart since September 2022. It's kind of
bloody hell.
Doesn't look
it
good.
says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Far out.
On the 12th of August, Bowen actually revealed they had one of its shareholders wanted to basically requisition a shareholder meeting via the Section 249D provision. And shortly after, they said Bowen actually came out saying that shareholder notice was defective. So 2 days later, the requisitioning shareholder clearly just rectified whatever was invalid about it, and they put in a proper 249D notice to call a meeting. To basically what they wanted to do, this requisitioning shareholder, they wanted to flick two of the directors and appoint someone of their own that they wanted to put on the board. Now, what we saw happen though was 2 weeks after that, a different director altogether stood off the board of Bowen. Which it was interesting. Then the notice of meeting went out on the 28th of August, and so the meeting, this shareholder meeting that's been requisitioned via the 249D is scheduled to be held on the 4th of October, and now the company's in trading halt. We aren't even at that vote yet, right? But like personally, I'm just kind of wondering if the share price dynamics and everything, it sort of looks like there's increased pessimism among shareholders about the ability to service the debt. And with that US $13 million to Taurus this quarter, I'd love to know if, what kind of comes out about the ability to pay or not pay that or restructure that. You could even see in the last quarterly that short-term liquidity appeared to be a pretty big issue for them. They had this whole paragraph on all the different things they were trying to pursue to kind of, enhance their short-term liquidity, including some of their inventories and working capital facilities, prepays, those sorts of things, but we haven't seen any disclosure around that yet. So I don't know what progress has happened there. I think it's worth pointing out that Bowen, they got a new CEO in January after the previous CEO was appointed less than a year before that. So it's kind of had a hard run of it from a sticking in the job perspective. And now Bowen, they've if you just look at their market cap today as a result of what's happened to that share price, just a $22 million market cap and $167 million in debt, including the convertibles. You don't need to be a genius to know it's kind of an ugly equation there.
Yeah. So, can't really raise yourself out of that too easily.
No, you're right. It's pretty tricky. I'm keen to see what emerges from it all. I'm not particularly optimistic about the equity case for shareholders here. You got Taurus and New Hope and in the debt stack, and they're going to care about being made whole first. Keep in mind, Bowen Coking Coal's assets, they've got this Burton mine complex, and if you look at the map they include in the investor pres, you can see like neighbours in the region there include the likes of so Stanmore's there with their Isaac Plains. There's also Peabody and Fitzroy Mining, sort of all there in the region. So best case scenario is one of those rescue them so that shareholders get something, but I'm not filled with confidence on that outcome when the alternative is maybe you pick it up cheaper from a different process. So.
Yeah, and like, is it one of those ones if they didn't have the debt and the pressure, like, could it work?
I don't actually I don't know. I'm not super familiar with the operational complexities that have seen them. I've got the sense that that there was a lot more development that sort of would have had to be done to reduce costs and all that sort of stuff. And I also like met prices have come off a fair way. And like
how much are they down from when it was fucking going off its head?
See that share price
from when Met went off its head, it at a very high hit, almost $600.
Yeah, now it's in the low twos, eh?
High 100s.
Oh, right.
So 190. Yeah. And even more recently, after we'd seen the fire at Grosvenor and sort of similar brief scares up in North America, obviously markets are a bit distorted, a bit regional based, but prices had hit 250-ish and a bit, and now we're talking 190 odd.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway, stay tuned for Bowen Coking Coal.
Yeah, right. Right, JD, finish her off, mate. Global Lithium, buddy. This is
interesting.
It's like the outcome of the 249D, but without sort of who they were putting in. It's different.
Yeah,
weird.
It's pretty entertaining. So they're really rolling the changes, as you kind of allude to there, Maddie. But they're still getting beaten up for it. So they're off over 10% today, over 30% for the week, over 85% over the last year, and over 95% if you're looking from the medium term highs. So it's been a pretty grim one for a project that would have just sat a whole lot higher on the cost curve if it had got to that stage, lithium, right? So what we saw, I think from memory, from the 20th of August was a bit of agitation from a group that I'll refer to as Sincerity, a sort of circa 7% shareholder. Now, they'd sort of put forward a 249D, which the company had said was invalid. Then 3 days later, they do a bit more work and they come up with a revised 249D, which the company, Global Lithium, no longer deems invalid. They don't sort of use that wording. Now, there had been some differences. What Sincerity wanted was 2 members of the board to step off, and they wanted to put this fellow called Barry Mitchell on. Now, there's some pretty hilarious wording in and around this. In the follow-up notice, they say that essentially Barry Mitchell had provided no consent to be a director.
I don't think anyone knew who this Barry Mitchell was. I don't think they could even find him.
Yeah, so never
mind.
mind.
It's a he. Like,
it does say Mr., so yeah, I would assume. And then, so Barry can sort of step aside. Leon Zhu, who is the beneficial owner of Sincerity, he then sort of puts his own name forward to be a director. Now, that was the 23rd of August. That kind of brings us to today. So what they've come out with and said in today's announcement is that they're pausing several work streams on the DFS. They're cutting back expenditure. The exec chair is going down to 3 days a week equivalent. They're trimming the board, so going to a 3-person board. Now, that does involve the removal of the 2 directors that Sincerity wanted removed from the board. But this is all as a result of the sluggish lithium market. This has nothing to do with what Sincerity wanted if you're sort of reading through the first page of Global Lithium's announcement. Then you get into the weeds a bit more. You read further on, and they do make a little mention to the 249D attempt from Sincerity. And what they've sort of said to address this is that, essentially they're saying, we hope you've addressed all your concerns. Do we really still need to do this vote? Can we hopefully just group it together with the AGM vote at the end of November? So I think we're going to wait on that front for final word from Sincerity. They can sort of say whether they're happy. They haven't got their man on the board, but perhaps they're happy with, a real culling of costs and a bit of a shake-up of the board. I mean, they're now a $43 million market cap company that has $25 in cash. I think a lot of the decisions that they made today needed to be made. Costs needed to be cut. I mean, obviously they got a fair cash buffer, but lithium's not what it was 1 or 2 years ago, and they need to sort of right-size it. We've seen it with plenty of companies of late. So I think it's worth a bit of discussion in and around that. Was this going to happen if you didn't see a major shareholder step up and say, hey, this isn't okay? And then perhaps there's some sort of different sides of the debate given the Chinese interest behind the parties and a lot of the shareholders at this company. Have you guys got
and
thoughts?
And Minres as well.
Minres. I mean, there's a few companies that sort of fall into this basket that are perhaps still operating.
Like but they got the stake in Global
9 point
as well.
Something, 9 or 10%. Yeah.
Well, it is interesting, right? Because I empathise with a shareholder wanting to, preserve the value of the company and not kind of just see the money spent kind of hand over fist to produce a DFS on an asset that's probably uneconomic in the current environment. Like, what are you going to do? Produce a DFS that says you need what sort of lithium price? I don't know.
But that like, and you know, when you say DFS, like, it's not just writing a piece of paper. Like, all the like geotechnical, like all the drilling and stuff that has to done. Like, it's like you could chew up cash on a DFS pretty quickly of all the physical stuff you have to do. I'm not sure how far they are along with all that stuff. Talking out my arse there a bit, but
mate, Cage will have the rigs there.
Oh, mate, all over it. But it's not like you're not just writing a big report. There's a lot of testing and stuff to do. But if you're in the fortunate position of having $25 in cash, I'd be wanting to preserve that as well till there's some more clarity on it, because it was always one of those, it's an ore sorting jobby, like, and which I think ore sorting tech seems to be sort of coming along.
It's come on a long way.
Pretty well, and because it's that, you know, real veiny sort of structure, like you nearly got to potentially be a bloody underground operation because it's one of those high strip ones. So, yeah, it's like, what do you do? The small cap gold did the same. Like, you had to a lot of them had to just batten down the hatches and wait for a turn.
Yeah.
Look at
your enemy basically is dilution when you're these sort of companies in this sort of market. And how do you avoid dilution? Just be bloody judicious with your costs. So I totally get that perspective. I'm sure there'll be like another line of inquiry that'll be about, you know, this theme that we've seen of Chinese affiliated entities trying to get control of our critical minerals. They can't do it via the takeovers because, you know, FIRB blocks it, but they've found the 249D mechanism to assist them. I'm just more cost conscious than I am sort of thinking about that.
Yeah, I do question that it needs a 249D to get to the point where you realise. So I do sort of empathise with the shareholders who are sitting there. But obviously it's quite a nuanced debate with the Chinese interest and all of that. But I think they've got to a sort of outcome now that is broadly in better interest than what was previously the business as usual for the company.
Yeah. Oh, and there's like, look at how many the amount of like executives that are still in place after like the whole lithium thing. Like, you know, when a couple of them stop and like reduce hours and everything, there'll be a bloody influx of executives in the market looking for work because there was that many frigging companies created for this lithium boom, and it just poof gone.
So goes the cycle.
Yeah, the bloody joys of it. So yeah, I don't know, where have we landed on that?
I think broadly it's a good outcome.
Oh yeah, LEGC's in the lithium ETF.
Yep.
Is a holder.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Are you happy, Ali, that the costs are cutting? So you want to? She says you want to cry.
More share price related, I reckon.
You think statistically, LEGC's got the most chance of something going up out of all of us. Oh, love it.
All right. Couple of partners to thank.
Oh, mate.
People who will be there through thick and thin.
Statistically going up in size and legendary status all the time is Axis Mining Technology. As always, MMS. Look out, Rio Tinto. You'll be getting a call soon, or you'll be calling them. VRIFY, ADIA. Get your tickets for ADIA. DSI Underground, Silverstone, CRE Insurance, Greenlands Equipment, K-Drill, and our bloody great friends at Spark. Love your work, everyone. Hootaroo.
Hootaroo, guys.
Oh, I'm going to fucking die now.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.